At $200, a Super Nintendo setup costs twice as much as the old system. For the money, the company promises better pictures, sound, and adventure. Now you're playing with power, superpower. You're the king, I tell you! The king!
Only for Super NES.
Only on Super NES.
You're listening to the SNES Podcast with your host, Soulblazer.
Hello, everybody. This is Super NES Podcast, episode number 242. I am Greg, one of your co-hosts, joined by Joe, my other co-host.
Hello.
And we're covering a game this time that's definitely one of the more unique, obscure games of the system. I never heard of it. I'm pretty sure Joe and I were talking about this off mic recently. I'm pretty sure this was a Joe pick, but neither one of us is quite sure where this pick came from. So maybe somebody recommended this game to us, which is very possible. Joe and I, as I mentioned before, Joe and I assembled our game list like months ago at this point. So it's like we don't remember the fine details exactly of who did this game and where it came from, or whatever, because it's like I never heard of it. I don't think Joe ever heard of it either. So this either was a suggestion to us by somebody, or Joe had seen this game during one of his like obscure Super NES game lists on YouTube at some point, and just forgot about it. But we're covering a game called Big Sky Trooper in this episode. So which is a very unique and interesting game, but. First of all, it's very surprised to find out this game was developed by Lucasarts. A pretty well-known, at least in the computer gaming market, or one of the company of this time period, like a very good point-and-click adventure games, for example. But Lucasarts did develop several console games. Most famous, they didn't fully develop, but they helped make the Super Star Wars games. Of course, this is what we've already covered. And LucasArts had a contract with JVC at this point, so JVC is the company that actually published the game. We've covered both companies in the past. So I won't talk about them too much, but it's very interesting. It's very interesting. LucasArts developed this game because it's like. I have a theory about how that came about, but I'll get into that later on, because I will say right now, research information for this game is pretty scarce because this is a very obscure game by most metrics. Fairly late Super NES game, came out in North America like October 1995, with like a power release very shortly afterwards. So it's specified as being like an action sci-fi game with a little bit of adventure adventure shooter aspects to it, which we'll get into here as we cover. But it's primarily like an action game. And it's a very interesting, unique game in many ways. Joe and I are going to be talking about this game, of course, but it's like I think it's one of those games that words alone cannot do this game justice. This is definitely a game to check out either on YouTube or definitely track down a copy to play via emulation. If this at all interests you, because like I said, we'll do our best, but this is definitely one of those games that words are very hard to paint a picture by itself for what this game is. So, but we'll give it a shot. First of all, the story of this game is very bonkers. It's a very kiddish / comic book style story of this game. I'll just cover the real quick and dirty points of the story. This is the future. There's an evil race. The evil race known as space slugs, who have attacked humanity. You are appointed a general, and transferred to general to fight back against them, and transferred to a ship called the ESS Direwolf. We are helped by the flexible, interactive digital armored computer, Fido, who's represented by a dog at some point. But from there, from that ship, you get your orders and objectives. And basically, you're trying to go around from planet to planet, trying to defeat the aliens and save humanity. So your basic sci-fi plot. Just done in a very kiddish over the top way. But
yeah, and some very interesting details that you skipped over is you're a 21-star general, whatever the hell that means.
Yeah.
I found that quite funny. What's his name? Sergeant Slack is literally popping out of the TV. I was like, I don't know if it's supposed to be like a 3D projection to where, he's kind of coming out at you as he's debriefing you, or if he's just that big that they had to make it look like he was kind of almost coming out of the TV. But the comedy with this game really starts if you just boot up the game and don't touch it. There is an alien that will fly around the Lucasarts logo and basically, degrade it because it's a slug and they're trying to take over the planets in the galaxy. And obviously your job is to eliminate them. So they want to set the premise right there that these guys are bad and whatever else. But
as a side note, LucasArts did that touch of several other games too. So,
yes. It warmed my heart. The minute it booted up and I saw that, I was like, okay, this is going to be a LucasArts game. I was like, I'm digging this.
You also have the ability to pick. You also have the ability to play through a male female player, which is kind of unique for a game of this time period. So
yeah.
Anyway, as you said, this game is very weird. As we said before, this game is very weird. It's very weird, very bonkers. Do you want to get the first crack and try and talk about how this game actually plays, Joe?
Oh my God! Let me tell you. All right, so. First, I'm going to tell you my mistake, and then I will tell you what happened. So you have a choice after you have your before you have your debriefing. You can either choose a boy, a girl, or there's a robot.
Yes. Yeah.
So I didn't want to be the boy or the girl. I wanted to be the robot, so I chose the robot. I got onto the ship. Didn't see the cutscene with Sergeant Slack. I went to the computer panel, talked to Fido, got that information. He basically tells me, I got to go around to the different planets. I try to navigate, can't go anywhere. I don't know what's going on. So I'm thinking oh my God, this is some cryptic stuff. I don't know what is what. All right. So then I go to the middle of the ship where they put you in the suit and they drop you. So it goes to where you get in the suit, the machine closes up, and it drops you. Game goes black. Just hangs there. So I'm like, do I have a defective ROM? Is it a corrupt data thing? Is that why I'm not able to play this? No, the answer is actually quite simple, but it took me multiple times resetting the emulator for me to figure it out. And I mean multiple times. We're talking almost an hour of trying to figure this out, okay? Very sad. You have to choose a boy or a girl. That's how you start a new game. How you continue your game is by selecting the robot. Because there was no game save, the robot option was just dropping me in the ship with no data. So therefore, when I was launching, there was no place to launch me because there was no mission. It was a big thing. Anyways, so... Lesson learned.
So I'll say that I might have made the same mistake myself, but I read the manual first because I'm like, I really don't know anything about this game. I would look at the manual first, see what's going on. So I will say the manual covers that. However, it's very weird. LucasArts didn't. However, it's very weird. I will agree with you. LucasArts should have programmed the game to have a message saying, "This is for continuing games only." But
yes.
Why they didn't, I don't know, because it's to have that happen to you is very weird. It's a very strange game design. But again, as I'm also okay. So sorry. I was going to say this. So I was going to say this for later, but I'll say this right now because I think it's kind of because it's going to cover what we're talking about the game. Because what you just talked about is a great example with this.
Yeah.
One of the reviews for this game, one of the very actually the only contemporary review of this game I could find for Next Generation, which again goes to show how overlooked this game is, said that this game is they said in their review this game is a very weird and curious combination of very a very cutesy, kiddish style look and feel with very complex game mechanics and complex game mechanics and gameplay that requires an adult to figure out and reading the manual. And I'm just like, yeah. There you go, right there, Exhibit A for that point. Yeah, so it's like, and so I'll mention that now, because everything else we talk about this game it doesn't reflect that statement. So, but anyway, so thank you for that. So thank you for that introduction, and go right ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So, of course, I then figured out that I needed to select either the boy or the girl. And the funny thing is, like, most of the gameplay I found on YouTube, which is how I found out I had to choose one of the boys or the girls, was like, it just jumps into that first cutscene where you're talking to Sergeant Slag. So I knew there was a disconnect somewhere. I just couldn't figure out where it is because nobody was showing gameplay of them selecting the boy or the girl to start the game. So I was just all confused. Anyways, finally figured it out. Sergeant Slack comes through, he gives you 3 aptitude tests that you're not going to fail. You can't fail. And so, funny thing is, I did this twice, because the first time I got lost and ended up not saving my progress, so I had to restart it. But they give you a test where you're supposed to hit A every time you see one of the alien slime creatures. So I did that the first time through, and it gets they move the pictures a little faster every single time. So at some point you're not going to be hitting A when you see them, and some are going to get by you. But they just let you progress either way. And I found that out on my second playthrough. When I started again, I just kept mashing A, and it just let me through. It said I was the best there is, the best there was. So, fantastic. 21-star general, no matter what. So you're fighting the Sultan of Slime, who are waging war on the human race. They've already captured most of the planets in the galaxy, and, we're scared. Everyone's scared, but we have everything you need to be able to wipe out these slimes, including all the guns. I love how he says that. We got all the guns. Then, from there, you are launched into your canine spaceship, where this is going to be your hub world, essentially. This is where you can save in the pods. You can heal in a little station off to the right, and then straight ahead of you is going to be the viewing screen where you'll talk to Fido, and then in just behind that, in the center of the screen, is where they have the launch pad where you'll launch down in your mech. We're calling it a mech. It's not really a mech, but we're going to call it a mech. And that's where you can go battle the slugs. So you're given a map point, basically showing where you're at. We're going to get to the fun there in a sec. So you are able to look at the map. You can move around. You can move by planets. From what I can tell, you can move only one by one. I could be wrong on that, but
no, you're
that's
right. Yeah,
kind of what I was getting.
Yeah.
Once you go into a space where there is a planet, you play a really cheesy version of Asteroids, which is also very simple. There's usually no more than 3 enemies that end up popping up. The screens are very small. This is a critique for the entire game. All the maps are super small and loop. So, yeah. For me, the Asteroid types game, I thought the controls were okay. They did sometimes feel unresponsive and just kind of like I got lucky. But I also know, like, you know, I wasn't using, like, A for the thrust booster. I was just literally spinning around in a circle and just kept shooting. Because I tried using the thruster. I just so you know, I suck at asteroids. So I've always sucked at asteroids. So this was definitely not my favorite part of the game.
It's a harder version of asteroids too, because I think that you get that you mentioned. It's not that the challenge itself is the challenge. The challenge doesn't come from the enemies.
Right.
The challenge comes from the fact that you mentioned you're very big. The map's very small. You can't really see the enemies. The enemies shoot like they're always like right on top of you. So it requires very pinpoint and very quick reflexes and decisions to do it. As you said, the controls, it's strange. I thought the controls versus the game to me felt fine. The controls here definitely felt a bit sluggish for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe just the fact that this is a different engine, so I don't know.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think it's a lost in translation thing. I think it was meant to give the ship weight, so obviously you can't make like hairpin turns and whatever else.
Yeah, right, yeah.
But it just like you said, it just feels really sluggish. It kind of hinders the aspect of gameplay, but also like this is only like 10% of what you do throughout the entire game, so there's that. I mean, yeah, it's a necessary evil, but it's one that can be easily overcome, and you don't have to do it that often. That being said, once you clear them out, you're able to land on the planet. Again, small maps, very small maps, and you run around zapping the aliens with your little tiny laser. Now, I know from doing research that this is based, they use the Zombie Ate My Neighbors engine, which is fantastic.
Yes,
I think that's one of the reasons that this part of the game works really well. But man, was I getting Fester's Quest vibes with this game, because you have a laser weapon that is supposed to, kill your enemies. It's short. You're guaranteed to take damage every time you try to kill an enemy, and you don't do a lot of damage, so therefore you're just constantly taking hits. My assumption is because that you start with quote-unquote 21 lives, that is your star rating. So the more stars that you acquired in the game, I'm assuming that would increase your life. Spoiler, I didn't get very far in this game. But it is kind of nice that they realize that, okay, you're going to take a lot of damage in this game, so we're making you a 21-star general so that you basically have 21 bars of health before the game is over. And then, of course, you can refill those with items that you find in the level, which, again, are few and far between, but they do show up. And then, be able to restore your health on the ship. But, yeah, it's... So, I traveled to 4 different planets. I did not know... again, this is probably stuff... So, inside baseball, I don't read the instruction manuals. I don't download the instruction manuals. I pick up the controller, I boot the game up, and I play it. It's just the way I would have done as a kid growing up. I never read... Like, I am one of those that collectors go, oh my God, what were you thinking? But I was the kid who took out the NES game and then threw everything else away because that it meant nothing to me. Okay.
Well, I didn't say my boxes either, but I always was the kind of kid by comparison who did read all those manuals beforehand. So
yeah, no.
I will say that again. This game is a very weird contrast in how cutesy and kidsy it looks and how complicated it actually is to play.
Yeah, right.
The manual is a huge help, and I will say for anybody listening, read the manual first, because not only does the manual explain how the game plays everything, it gives very helpful information toward the end of the manual. It gives you tips. It gives you all the items you get in the game and what they do. It gives you an opening walkthrough of what to do to start the game off. It gives you all the it shows you all the suit modules that you can pick up and what they do, and then it gives you a map both the world, the galaxy, and your flagship. So it's a very handy thing to read. So if you don't read it, you're gonna start from the game, like Joe's gonna talk about here.
I was gonna say, if you don't read the manual, you're me. But yeah, so I ended up traveling to the planets 3 times before I figured out what I was supposed to be doing because I just got so frustrated. So you go to the planet, clear out the slimes. Cool thing, slimes don't respawn. So once you clear a planet, you're good. But then in lies the issue that when you're trying to figure out what you need to do and you have to keep visiting these planets over and over again, you get frustrated real quick because everything's already dead, and you can't proceed forward. So I started off first by going to the planet on the right, which if you end up looking at the map, you'll understand what I'm saying. But I didn't write down planet names.
That's
so
fine.
I went to the one on the right first, did the asteroids thing, cleared it out, and left. Which that took a while too to figure out that you had to select the Fido icon to be able to teleport out. So that was fun too. Also, why are we liberating these planets when these planets have creatures that are not enemies, but yet they attack you and still take health from you? I don't know. It feels kind of pointless that we're freeing these planets if they're just going to attack us anyways. That being said, then I went to the hub world, which is it's not really the hub world, but it's a shop where Sergeant Slag's working now, apparently, because he's not a sergeant anymore, I guess. He's retired. And he's asking for medals so that you can exchange stuff. Spoiler, I never found a single medal. I don't know what he was talking about. I tried to give him everything, including a transponder, because transponders are made of metal, right? So it makes sense. But no. Went to the planet on the left. Same thing, cleared it out. I think that was the one where I accidentally hit a button next to a box and found out you can get items through boxes. And I was like, cool, okay. Then I went south to a planet that's literally enemy free. It's just a rock and a green planet. I was like, okay, well, cool. At some point, it is explained that you can build defenses on these planets, which makes sense that you would, want to do that to help fight the slugs. There was a planet, I can't remember again which one I landed on, but there were some boxes, and it's surrounded by a brick barrier. And I was trying to figure out how I could get past this brick barrier. This is when I discovered, those blue orb things that you find on the planet talk to you. I thought they were checkpoints because every time you walk by them, little flags pop up. So I was like, checkpoint. If I end up dying, this is where I'll go back to. Nope, they're mailboxes. And they have messages from, it starts off with like the person you're supposed to be saving on this planet that's like 3 planets away.
Yeah.
So they tell me I gotta find some sort of explosive device that's gonna blow open the bricks so that I can grab the boxes, which makes sense because I'm pretty sure like those boxes contain a item, possibly the metal that Slack's looking for, or whatever else it is to progress. For the life of me, like I said, I traveled between these 3 planets. I couldn't get any further. It kept telling me no go. Wouldn't let me travel any further. It was just these 3 planets. I kept going like in between, stopping at the space station, thinking like, maybe I have to stop at the space station as like a hub every single time, and then kind of go from there. Nope, didn't work. I got forward progress when I went to the left planet and talked to that orb. They were like, I'm only a few planets away, and then I was able to go to the next planet in line. But then once I got to that planet, killed all the slugs, and then hit the orb, it literally was a brick wall. Like, I couldn't go to any other planet except for the planets I'd already been to. So it was just really, really frustrating. I'm not knocking the game for it because, as Greg pointed out, I should have read the manual. Probably should have looked at a walkthrough. There's a lot of things I could have done to probably make this a better experience.
It's a surprisingly complex game for its kiddie look. And I don't blame you for that because, again, this is why I mentioned the point already because the point that I'm going to keep harping on. It's very deceptive. The game looks and feels very kiddie, but it's also very complex and deep once you get on the surface.
Yeah.
So I don't blame anybody for looking at the game. Okay, I can figure this out. Like, no problem. It's a typical Lucasarts game. It's very deep under the surface, like most Lucasarts games this time period were. Regardless if the game was designed for computer or for console. So, maybe being a LucasArts game might have given you a hint that maybe this is not what it first looked. But having said that, I don't blame you for being frustrated. So, because the game is very. It's very surprising in what actually you need to do this game to proceed.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll talk about graphics and sound and all that here in a bit, but I'm just going to come out and I'm going to tell you my verdict on this game now before we get into all that, because it sounds negative coming from me so far, and that's not really the case. Like, I found it to be a decent game. Do I think it has its flaws? Absolutely. It has great. It looks great. I think the concept for a good game is there. I think the menus and the repetitive gameplay is really what brings this game down more than anything else. Even if the menus were simplified, the whole idea of, like, think of it as like an 8-block map. Like, an 8-block map every time you go to a planet. That's all you have are those 8 blocks. So once you look at everything in those 8 blocks, there's no reason to be on that planet. You've wiped out the enemies, you've done it, whatever. And then you're moving on. And it's just like every planet feels the same. That might be because of the fact that, like, I didn't get far enough to be able to swap out weapons or whatever else. But, like, the slugs all have kind of one look. There's, like, bigger slugs, and you shoot them, and they split into smaller slugs with one eye. And then you kill those, and that's that. And like I said, that could be different down the line. I didn't get that far, so I can't criticize that. But I really think the redundancy that I experienced is really what brings it down to me. Because it's just, I like a good game, but if you're going to have it be redundant like that, you got to have some sort of mechanic that kind of keeps it interesting, and that's not, unfortunately, what I experienced. That's all. Yeah,
so I will say that. So I will say I agree with you for the most part. However, I will say that I think your experiences were covered by the fact that you didn't know what you were doing, and that if you looked at the manual first, maybe you might have had a different experience. So that's what. But that's what I wanted to say again. And anybody wants to play this game? There's definitely a very read the manual first game. Totally. Yeah. There are a lot of Super NES games that we cover that don't require manuals to be looked at. This game is definitely one of them. As I said, it's a LucasArts game. It's very surprisingly deep. So, I think so. The manual, I think, may have influenced your opinion, but you're right about but you are correct about how. Yeah, but you are correct about the game being kind of repetitive once you get the flow down. Yeah. So I will say that just you just very cautiously as far as that goes. But anyway, since they brought up the manual, let me talk about some of the things the manual says to expand upon the actual gameplay of the game. First of all, this game actually has this game actually has a battery in it, so you don't have to, which is great. You're not having to fumble around with the password, and you have room for 4 saves too, which is also nice. Very impressive for a game this time period. So, second of all, you can get upgrades in this game to help you out as you proceed. Upgrades usually are either by fighting items on planets, or by getting them as rewards from the sergeant or from Fido as you go through the game. Some upgrades improve your ship. Some upgrades improve your character. Your character on the planet. For example, there's 2 upgrades you can get to make the asteroids part of the game easier. For example, so these upgrades some upgrades are not needed to finish the game. You can skip them if you want to, but obviously with a game like this, the more upgrades you get, the easier things are for you. Yeah. So the map of this game is actually fairly big. You don't need to land on the there's actually not that many planets, as Joe mentioned, and you don't need to you don't need to plan you don't need to land all of them. But the map actually has a lot of surprising depth to it. You access new planets by taking control of the relay, and the relay you the gain either by liberating a planet beforehand, or it's also an item. There's also an item you can use to plop down. I'm going to call it like a satellite that basically like extend your fuel range and sensor range to allow you to proceed. So, depending upon where you are on the map, you need to do either one of those 2 things to proceed and go to a new area like the ship map. There are a bunch of items you can pick up also, like items in the game that you pick up. This again shows Lucasarts' origin or adventure game aspect to it, and the fact that you can get a bunch of items on the planet, and you can also use items that you want to pretty much any time. Health fruits give you health back. Fido uplink allows you to return to the ship at any time. Neon signs there's an in-joke in this game that slugs hate both advertising and fast food. So if you use neon sign, they lose strength. It's basically like a weakener for them. Lucky charms are used to trade for other goods. Ancient artifacts are also used to trade for other goods. Slug trading cards can also be used to trade for other goods, but they're also very useful on the slug flagship, the last stage of the game. And stash stars tells you your rank. The meadows Joe mentioned, in my experience, meadows can only be attained by the spirit of the planet. Each planet has a spirit, which is like a guardian spirit, a tree or rock, whatever it is on that planet. You talk to it. It asks for something. You do its request. They give you meadows reward. So you then turn that meadow into the general to let it get upgrades like or whatnot.
Okay, so there you go. This is why I needed to read the manual, because how the hell am I supposed to know to talk to rocks and trees?
well, the tree has a face. I mean, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, fair enough. So, starfield drums can also be used to be able to clear away cliffs and walls, which may be necessary to proceed, and also maybe optional areas which give you like some cool stuff. You basically clear a planet by establishing a fast food franchise on the planet, which is very nice because it's like slugs hate fast food. So it's kind of like it's a fun tongue-in-cheek reference to capitalism and fast food and whatever. But anyway, yeah. So once you clear the planet by killing all the slugs, which will come back as Joe mentioned, you pop that in that franchise. That franchise, and basically the planet's yours at that point. So that's kind of that's your ultimate objective, playing a world, is to do that. So Joe mentioned the mailboxes already. So let me see here. Promotions are very important in this game. They help both in terms of giving you like some extra health and also various upgrades for your suit, like for your ship. Some of the power-ups you can get are basically snorkels, jetpacks, camouflage, ice rays, powerballs, self-repair, super shields, sweep shots, tactical nukes, and bounce shots. Which I said, varies depending upon what it is. It's either a device for your ship, like a device for your suit. So. And like I said, not all of them are necessary to advance, but some of them at least are necessary to advance.
Yeah.
So, the game feels like it was designed for kids, and we'll get to this point later on here toward the end. But it's because they give you a very detailed walkthrough of the first area in the map, and in the manual, as well as the map of the galaxy, as well as the map of the final stage, the enemy flagship, which is it's a very kiddish thing for them to do to help the player out. So like I said before, it's that same weird dynamic between this game has. So if you know what you're doing, the game's not too long to go through. Most walkthroughs on YouTube are about most walkthroughs on YouTube average around 3.5 to 4.5 hours, depending upon how fast the player races through the worlds and does or does not get the optional items to help you out. So. Not a very long game if you know what you're doing. I imagine first time player probably is more like around 20-30 hours. But so again, a save state is the backup. Why I probably wasn't necessary per se, because a lot of games this type would just simply force you to play through it one sitting. So, but the battery being here to allow you to come back is a very, very nice touch that I wish more games this time period definitely took advantage of. Although I'm sure it also raised the overall cart price because Super NES prices. You were Genesis, Joe, so I really don't know how much you're paying attention to game prices of the stores back then, but Super NES prices were all over the place.
Yeah.
Some games came out. Nowadays most games come out just like a regular price. There are exceptions, of course, but usually, if you pick a system, say if you get PS5, you're like, okay, a new AAA game will be with this price. An indie game would be up this price. Back in these days, prices are very wildly all over the place. Like new games, it's like action games, for example, could be very cheap, whereas very sophisticated, complicated RPGs, like for example, Final Fantasy VI or Phantasy Star 4, could be super expensive. So I could not find how much this game was new, but I'm sure it probably was more toward the higher end because the battery backup probably added the cost significantly. So, but anyway. So I definitely don't blame you for the frustrating experience, Joe, because you had no way of knowing this, but it's the manual for this game definitely is a must read. I think the gameplay does get a bit repetitive. I definitely agree with that. But being able to know what to do, how to do it, definitely helps with the overall gameplay experience.
Yeah.
But the overall formula is still the same. It's like you go to the world. You clear the ships in space. You go down to the planet. You walk around. You explore. You blast enemies. You do what you need to go, and you move on. So, if you enjoy that kind of formula, then it's great. Otherwise, you might get bored and or frustrated fairly early in this game. Again, it all depends upon how you like games of this type, and also if you're a fan of LucasArts games. Like I said, this game definitely feels like a lot of LucasArts games. If you enjoy their games, you'll definitely you'll probably have a fun time this one too. So, It definitely is a very unique game in some ways. It's weird because, again, this game's so weird and such a dynamic in so many ways. It's unique in some ways and very cookie cutter in others. I apologize. Like that doesn't make a lot of sense, but that's just how it is. Like I said before, this is a very hard game to describe by words alone. We're trying to do our best here.
Yeah, and like I said in my verdict, I said the game isn't half bad. So the positive parts of this game for sure is the oversized sprites and colorful, bold graphics that are in the game, but also I thought the music was good too.
Let's get into the graphics and music here. So. And
I'm almost positive because, like I said, I was stuck on these planets, walking around in the ship and whatever, trying to figure everything out. It sounds slightly different, so it's definitely not a pure copy. But the music that plays, I believe it's on the ship. When you're in like the Fido menu and whatnot, very much sounds like that original menu music from the Star Wars Squadron game from the GameCube. Squadron 2. Yeah, like it's got like that, I don't know, like heroic kind of soundtrack to it, but like it's like they're trying to, it sounds like an orchestral kind of tune, but obviously coming through the 16-bit chip. Whereas in the GameCube, they actually did that whole orchestra, full CD quality track. But yeah, it sounds slightly like that. And that was the first thing I thought. It was like, oh, well, like maybe someone who did the music for this game also possibly worked on, Rebel Assault. Yeah. You know what I mean? And like it just happened to transfer over.
Possible.
But that was like, I mean, the music was good either way. And I think it fits the mood and all that. But that particular track kind of stood out because I was like, the whole time I'm sitting there like humming it, and I'm like, I feel like I should be flying an X-Wing. But yeah, and like I said, the graphics are fantastic. I think that is the biggest part of this game. This game has so much charm because of the graphics, and the settings that they put you in. But yeah, ultimately, what it comes down to is, I'm going to recommend you play Zombies Ate My Neighbors before you play this.
Fair enough. Yeah. So I actually had a different opinion about the graphics and music, the music of this game. I agree. So overall, I agree the graphics are very nice. They're very colorful. They're detailed. They're very good Lucasarts graphics. Again, like I mentioned, same game engine that they use for Zombies. So makes sense. I thought your character was a bit too big for the screen, because the same problem with the ship in space. It's like it's a big, it's a big player character on a small map, which hurts your ability to be able to see and to react to things in time. Okay. I wish either character was a bit smaller or the map was a bit bigger, because Zombies Ate My Neighbors didn't have that problem. Yeah. Zombies has both the bigger map, both screen I should probably say, and a small character. It's like, you look good in the suit. The suit looks great, but it's like you're very big compared to everything else. Yeah. And it's like, I had problems definitely trying to avoid enemies or get around obstacles because of that size. So I wish that. I wish there was. So that complaint aside, the overall gameplay and graphics in this game are fine. Music is good, I agree, but it's so soft I couldn't hear it most of the time. Yeah. It's very. It had to be a design choice by the developers. I guess they decided to make the music because the music is very abstract, out of the way. Usually games like this, games this type, it'd be like in your face, like very loud, like very like always hearing it, action packed kind of like stuff, but. This soundtrack is very subdued, very subtle, very low key. It's a very interesting musical choice. Your mild tone reflects on vary. I didn't care for it too much. Joe obviously liked it. It depends on what you're looking for in a game, I guess. But just I don't know why they made it so soft. I guess that was maybe like I said, it was a very curious design choice by the developers making this game like all around. So
yeah, I think one thing that helped as far as like being able to hear that music, because I did notice that when I played it on my TV, a lot of my gameplay was done on my Steam Deck with headphones on. It's just me and the music and the sound effects in the game. So it's like I'm going to pick up on that stuff a little bit easier. But yeah, I can completely see where you're coming from as far as it being a very soft soundtrack, because that's what I experienced when I played it on the TV.
Yeah. So, yeah. And again, it's like I can't think of a game like that because it's very, at least not through the entire game. I mean, yeah, there are games that have very soft music in stage or two, but yeah. So, like I said before, this is a very curious game of Lucasarts. It's like I know what they're going for here. Well, let me back up. In some ways, I know what they're going for here. They obviously wanted to make it. They obviously wanted to make another game using the same engine. Which is called the ZAM engine, by the way. ZAMN. They obviously wanted to use that engine again to make another game and came up with this one. And it's a very it's a very unique game in some ways for sure. It definitely has a LucasArts polish to it. It's well programmed. Everything everything about the game we've been saying. Besides the point, these are experienced developers at this point. They know what they're doing. The game plays very well. So, So I guess they're trying to make it, the game does feel console-ish. It definitely feels like LucasArts designed it for consoles, but they also brought in some computer aspects to the game, such as that quest system, such as that the inventory system with the items that you pick up using at any time, and whatever. It's a very curious blend of like console and computer gameplay from a time period in which those two things are very, very distinct. Mm-hmm. But as I said, this game got released to very little attention. It's why I don't know. LucasArts was a pretty big name in the 90s. JVC was not a very big publisher, sure, so maybe the game had a small print run, but it's like, whatever reason, nobody really paid this game much attention. Like I said before, I only found one contemporary review of this game from Next Generation, and I already mentioned one of their main points. It's like, it's a very weird mix of like cutesy graphics and storyline with very complex gameplay levels. And it's like, so it's like they go on to say, we don't know who this game was intended to. We don't know what the intended audience for this game is. Right. We can't figure it out, but somebody out there will enjoy this game. Yeah. Which again seems like a very good summary of the game overall. Mm-hmm. Like then they gave 3 out of 5 stars, and that's a very good question too. And let me ask you also that same question, Joe. Who was this game designed for? Because in some ways it's very kiddish, and in other ways like it's very, very complex. So it's like I don't know. I have no idea who they're aiming the game for.
Yeah, and I'm with you because obviously if it was designed for kids, I would have figured it out and gotten a lot farther than I did. And if it was designed for adults, well, I think you would have gone with a different visual style. I don't think it would have been as playful with the little slime aliens. So I don't know. I think that's one of the big marks that they missed is the whatever target audience they were going for. And I'm with you. I do think that they were trying to merge their point and click kind of roots and mix that up with an action adventure game, and it didn't translate well, in my opinion.
It's not a bad try.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a horrible game for sure, because I said it's programmed very well, at least it plays well. It's just like I said, it's not a very good marriage.
Yeah.
And again, part of the problem is we don't know who the game's meant for. Right. Because like you said, and also the manual, with all the help the manual gives you, with the items and the maps and everything, again, that leads to, all that help leans toward the kid's side. But at the same time, the game later on in the game, because I did finish the game, by the way, the game later on in the game like the game later on, the game definitely gets like very, very difficult. It's like, I can't see, kids I think are in struggle playing that. So it's like, again, it's like I don't know who this is meant for. It's very, it's like I am hard pressed to think of another game we've covered on the podcast or a game I played myself before during my 40 plus years of playing games. I'm trying to think of a game that's this confused in its identity as to who it's for than this game is.
Yeah.
It's very, very, very weird and very hard. I guess that's the reason why this game is so underrated and so unknown, even today. But it's like, what is this game even? Who is it for? How are we supposed to? How are we supposed to approach this? Et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. It's a game for its time, and it's not very often that you come across a game that is stuck in time. But this is one of those things, like, not many people who are emulating games are looking at the manuals. That's a hard fact.
probably true. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, like, the fact that you do need the manual to kind of understand what's going on and everything else really sets this to a game that hasn't aged well because of the fact that it's a product of its time. When most kids would buy the game, they would inspect the instruction manual. Most kids, I've heard stories of kids reading the manuals on their way home from buying the game in the back of the car.
I did that a lot. Yeah.
So, we already know how I feel about manuals. But anyway, so, it's definitely a product of its time. It's definitely not a game I could ever see them kind of like remastering and bringing out now. Unless they added a digital copy of the manual, then I could possibly see that happening. But it would be, I guarantee you, if they were to do something like that, it would be like a Lucasarts, like, compilation. Like, it would have numerous Lucasarts games on it. This wouldn't be released as itself. Yeah. And also, to be fair, I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit. This game isn't that hard to obtain.
Yes and no. My experience with eBay was a little bit different, but we'll get to that in just a moment.
Yeah.
But I will say I agree with everything. So it's like one last point. I agree with everything you said, but I also will say again, this game feels like LucasArts game like in many ways. So if you enjoyed LucasArts games this time period, by all means check this game out because I think you're gonna you have to definitely have fun with this for sure. Even if we can't figure out who the audience like this game is intended to be for, but because we said I think it does a pretty good job of blending ideas from the computer games with a more console-ish action game. So and it definitely has a it definitely has the LucasArts polish to it, the graphics and the graphics and zany humor and the action, that kind of stuff. So it's a shame this game. It's a shame this game is not like better known because I think it's a very unique, interesting game of its time period. For sure. But one last note: don't ask me where the title of the game came from or what it even means. It's like Big Sky Trooper. What does that even mean? What is you're in space. You're not in Montana. What the hell is a Big Sky Trooper supposed to be even? But it's like it's a very weird title.
Yeah.
That doesn't help either because it's very like non-descriptive, very roll of the tongue, and very like forgettable titles. Like, okay, whatever the hell is this?
I'm wondering if they wanted to call it like Space Troopers or something, but there was something that was stopping them from doing that.
Well, there is a franchise called Space Troopers
okay,
already.
So Big Sky is the best way to explain outer space, I guess. You know what I mean? That was my reasoning behind it. Was like, okay, like, so Big Sky basically explains space, and you are being a trooper. You're a trooper. Having to kill the slugs. But yeah,
the trooper part kind of makes sense, but it's like I literally forgot the name of this game several times during the last few weeks.
Same.
And I had to look it up. What the heck is this game I call it again? But because it's a very forgettable name. It's not very good at all. Yeah. But that actually may be one of my biggest gripes of this game. It's a very forgettable title. But So there are no cheat codes in this game per se. There is one stash of Starfield drums, which are very precious and very valuable to you, that you can find on Gobi, a planet pretty far on the game. We can look at 8 Starfield drums hidden away in a very missable area. Probably one of the most hardest bonus areas to reach in the game, which is why the walkthroughs and this points out to the player to how to find it, because it's very hard to get to. But that's pretty much it as far as secrets go in this game. It's like if there are hidden areas, hidden items you can look at in this game. That's the best and hardest one to find in the game. There are no cheat codes or anything else like that as far as the game goes, and no difficulty settings either. It's just like it's one standard of difficulty, which the games, as I said before, games start off very easy. Then it gets harder later on.
Yeah.
Even those upgrades are optional, those upgrades really also at the same time, those upgrades are also really necessary to help you progress in the game. Again, it's that weird dynamic, weird mix between not knowing what it wants to be, as far as like forcing the player to do one thing while also saying the player can do something else.
Yeah.
This whole game is filled like contradictions. So, and that's just another way that it is a contradiction for sure. But anyway, as Joe mentioned, the game can be found on eBay. I wouldn't call it super common. But there are copies of the game to be found there on eBay. When I did research on this, I found 16 copies of the game were currently listed for sale, with 70 copies of the game that recently sold. Most of the sales are cart only. And the game, considering the fact that the game is somewhat uncommon and rare, the prices are pretty good. Again, I think it's because nobody really knows about this game, so that's kind of get the prices down. But currently prices that I've copied that this game sold for recently range from $15 to $48, which is pretty good for Super NES pricing.
That's actually really good.
CIV copies ranging from $43 to $43, just like very beat up, just bare bones box manual cart version to a pristine, complete, all inserts included with the game, etc. $150. So again, not bad pricing. The pricing like either end as far as the game goes. Again, because I'm sure it was a small print run, but because nobody knows about the game, it's not expensive to add to your collection. And unless you want to play an emulation, you will need to buy a copy of the game because as Joe mentioned, this has not been released like anywhere else.
Yeah.
So maybe Lucasarts might include it in the compilation at some point. That would be cool, but honestly, they probably forgot that this game exists at this point.
I think that's the truth.
Because they have the rights to the game, I'm sure. It's Lucasarts' game, with Daily Wrench and everything else, so I'm sure they have the rights to it, but it's like nobody's clamoring this game in 2024 either, so it's probably not even worth the low cost it ever has. So it would be to stick out to a compilation, but who knows? I've learned a long time ago. Never say never when it comes to things like this.
Yep.
But so $15 per copy of this game, very very cheap for sure. So definitely one of the more cheaper Super NES games to get to for your collection if you want to. But so. Like I said before, I don't know if this game is recommended to us or if Joe found this game somewhere on a list of weird, unique Super NES games. But either way, I can see why it belongs there because it's a very interesting, unique, very hard to pin down game for sure. I can honestly say I don't think I've ever played anything quite like this before with the system.
Yeah, I haven't played a game like this. Like I said, I used Festus Quest as the example to kind of compare it, just because
there are a couple similarities, sure.
The top-down view and the short attack and the bullet sponges enemies. But I haven't, other than Festus Quest, we really haven't played something like this except for Adam's Family Values last episode. But even that's a totally different structure than what we have here. So it makes this game very unique. And like I said, it's it's only half bad. So you should check it out. Definitely through emulation. Even for, I guess, $15 a cart, $25 at the most. It wouldn't be that bad to pick up a cart, but I think it should be experienced for sure.
Yeah. There's not even very much coverage on this game on YouTube either, which also goes to show how uncommon, how overlooked this game is. So there's a few reviews, what's that thing called? The SNES Drunk, or something like that.
Yep. Which I actually think it might have been his video that got this game into my mind, and it might have been my pick because I remember seeing his video on this, and he's always usually pretty positive as far as the reviews that he does, unless it's a big stinker. So he could talk you into any game, at least trying it, and I'm pretty sure that's what he did in that video for this.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't regret playing this. Frustration aside, I did have fun playing it. Because I also grew up playing Lucasarts games on the computer as well too. So it's like I definitely had nostalgia for a game this type, even if it is very, very different from the I actually had played from them before. But it feels like I said before, it feels like Lucasarts game definitely from top to bottom. So, which is kind of funny because I was talking Joe off mic. I'm also currently playing Star Wars Outlaws, which is developed in combination with LucasArts, the modern form of LucasArts today. So it's like, one foot in the past, so one foot in the present.
Yep.
But so it's very interesting as far as as the saying goes, the more things change, the more they stay the same.
Yep. So true.
But anyway, after doing 2 action games back to back, or action-ish games, I probably should say, we're changing gears up next time. For the next 2 episodes, I think. Actually, we're going to be covering. Is it 2 RPGs back to back, or is it 3? I think. Let me take a quick look.
I was going to say I did not look at the list, so I don't quite know, but I do know.
No, 2. Yeah.
Okay.
So we did 2 action adventure games back to back. That were like two RPG-ish games back to back. So, we teased earlier this year when we covered Secret of Mana that we were also going to be looking at its kind of spiritual sequel / American developed counterpart, Secret of Evermore. That time has come. So, Secret of Evermore is a game I played when it first came out and liked. I haven't played it since. I'm curious to see how the game holds up today. I know it's a very much more kiddish. Speaking of kiddie games, it's much more easier to take on the Mana series. American designed, one of the very few games this time period that was American designed. So, I'd be curious to see how this game holds up 30 plus years later. But, and Joe, you have no experience with this game, right?
I have no experience at all. I've heard of The Secret of Evermore, but I've never seen gameplay. I've never seen reviews or anything of this game, nobody discussing it. So I am going in as blind as you can. So it's going to be an interesting experience for sure. But hey, based on your encouraging words that it was kind of American made and for the younger audience, I think I might dig it because,
It also plays very similar to Secret of Mana. So if you look at Mana, like Mana, then you like this game.
Okay.
Basically.
And we all know my affinity for Final Fantasy Mystic Quest. I'm the only person in the world that likes that game. So
I like it too. But But okay, yeah. So look forward to that next time. So as always, we appreciate you hanging out with us. You can find us on Facebook if you want to. You can also send me an email directly to the SNESPodcast@yahoo.com. We welcome all questions, comments, feedback, game suggestions, etc. Joe, where can they reach you at?
I'm a public figure on Facebook. You can find me there. Be warned, I don't post happy-go-lucky things all the time. Some things are controversial. Also, I do the Radical Retro Roundup. Also, again, there's some explicit information and expletives given on that show. Definitely not family friendly. But we just recorded, as of this recording today, I just published the episode. By the time this hits your ears, the episode will have been out for a week. So, we did Brewster's Millions, which is a Richard Pryor, John Candy film from 1985. That was fun. And it was George's pick, so I was completely kind of hit out of left field with that because, like, we had just done Pryor's Place, and I was like, yeah, I know I tortured him with that. So I think he kind of was like, I want to see like some good Richard Pryor stuff. I really do think that was the mindset. And yeah, we discussed that during the episode. It was funny too, because when it was all said and done, he was like, oh my God, he's like, don't tell me we're doing like some other like Richard Pryor movie. And I was like, no. I was like, we're going to switch our focus to games. So next month we're going to record Ninja Shadow of Darkness, which is
never heard of that one.
It's a PS1 game, that was designed by Eidos and Core, the people who did Tomb Raider. It's literally the same creative team. I remember enjoying the game in 98 when it was released. I haven't played it since, so there is that.
A lot of PS1 games. Yeah, unfortunately, and no fault of the game itself, a lot of PS1 games sadly have not aged very well.
Yeah, so it was a toss-up between that or Taifu, the Wrath of the Tiger. But Taifu I've played recently, and Taifu is essentially like Kung Fu Panda, but like good. So, and that's made by Activision. So it's a good game. So I could have chose that one, but like I just recently played that and I was like, I really don't want to do like a deep dive critique of that game, at least not yet. So I was like, I want something like that. And then like Tenchu came to mind and I was like, Tenchu can get kind of deep because of the mechanics in the game and everything else. And anyone who listens to the Radical Retro Roundup as well as knows me, I am super laid back and I try to not have to put a lot of work into the podcast. So anything that's like super deep, I'm like, no, I'm not looking to cover that. But it's, come check us out. I have noticed that our listening numbers have gone up. So I know some of you have come over and thank you. I appreciate every listen I get.
Yeah, for sure. Like you guys, I try to listen to your podcast as much as possible. Like I think you guys should you're doing some great work. So
thank you.
Always glad to. Yep, always glad to have you give a shout out like this. Like the great work you guys are doing, like and whatnot. So, but anyway, as always, we very much, appreciate you giving us every day. Stay safe, be well, everybody. We'll catch you again next time, and take care, all. Later.
Bye.
Nintendo controls 80% of the video market, but no matter how you play the game or which game you play, things definitely have come a long way since Pac-Man.
Now you're playing with power. Super power.